The courtroom was a battlefield, and Elliot Harper was its undisputed king. 35. He'd never lost a case, his sharp tongue and sharper mind cutting through opponents like a blade through silk. But today, as he stood in his Manhattan penthouse, staring at his reflection in a floor-to-ceiling window, he felt the first crack in his armor. Elliot adjusted his tie, the kind of navy silk that cost more than most people's rent. His life was a carefully curated masterpiece, a corner office at one of New York's top law firms, a wardrobe of bespoke suits, and a reputation that made junior associates tremble. But tonight, he needed something or someone complete the illusion. His family, old money conservatives from upstate New York, were coming to the city for their annual gala, and they expected him to bring a fiancée. The problem? Elliot was gay, deeply closeted, and had no intention of letting his parents' expectations unravel his carefully guarded truth. He'd hired Jasper Cole for the job. Jasper, 28, was a struggling artist with a side hustle as a bartender in Brooklyn. Elliot had found him through a discreet agency that specialized in companions for high-profile clients. Jasper's profile was perfect, charming, quick-witted, and black, with a warm smile that could disarm anyone. Elliot needed someone who could play the part of his devoted partner, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. Jasper needed the money. It was supposed to be simple. The doorbell buzzed, and Elliot's pulse quickened. He opened the door to find Jasper standing there, lean and confident, his denim jacket a stark contrast to the penthouse's sterile luxury. "You must be the guy who's paying me to lie," Jasper said, his voice smooth but with a playful edge. His dark eyes sparkled with something Elliot couldn't quite read: mischief, maybe, or defiance. "Elliot Harper," he said, extending a hand. His tone clipped. "You're Jasper, I presume." "Presume away," Jasper replied, shaking his hand with a grip that lingered a second too long. "So, what's the deal? I pretend to be your boyfriend for a night. Smile for the cameras, and don't spill the wine on your fancy relatives." "Fiancé," Elliot corrected, his jaw tightening. "And it's not just a night. It's a weekend. My family's gala is tomorrow, but there's a dinner tonight, and they're particular. You'll need to sell it." Jasper raised an eyebrow, leaning against the doorframe. "Sell it? Man, I could convince the Pope I'm his long-lost son. But you look like you're about to fire me before I even start." Elliot bristled. "Just stick to the script. We met 6 months ago at an art gallery. You're a painter. I'm a lawyer. We fell in love. Keep it simple." Jasper smirked, stepping inside and glancing around the penthouse. "Simple. Got it. But just so you know, I'm not big on scripts. I'm more of an improv guy." Elliot's stomach twisted. This was a mistake. Jasper was too unpredictable, too alive. But it was too late to back out now. His parents were already in the city, and the clock was ticking. The dinner was at Lou Bernardin, a Michelin-starred restaurant where every detail screamed exclusivity. Elliot's parents, Richard and Evelyn Harper, sat across from them, their faces a study in polite judgment. Richard, 65, was a retired judge with a permanent scowl, while Evelyn, 62, hid her disapproval behind a tight smile and a pearl necklace that probably cost more than Jasper's annual rent. Jasper, to his credit, was flawless. He laughed at the right moments, complimented Evelyn's taste in wine, and even managed to charm Richard with a story about a non-existent art exhibit they'd visited together. Elliot watched, half impressed, half terrified. Jasper's hand rested on his under the table, warm and steady, and for a moment, Elliot forgot it was an act. You two seem very comfortable, Evelyn said, her eyes narrowing as she sipped her Chardonnay. Tell me, Jasper, what drew you to our Elliot? He's not exactly the warmest soul. Jasper's smile didn't falter. Oh, you'd be surprised, Mrs. Harper. Elliot's got this quiet fire about him. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's like the whole world stops to listen. Elliot's breath caught. Jasper's words were too real, too intimate. He forced a laugh, squeezing Jasper's hand a little too hard. He's exaggerating, he said, shooting Jasper a warning glance. But Jasper just grinned, leaning closer. Am I? The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of small talk and expensive food. By the time they left the restaurant, Elliot's nerves were frayed. Jasper, however, seemed unfazed, whistling as they walked to the car. You're good, Elliot admitted, sliding into the driver's seat of his sleek black Audi. Too good, maybe. Jasper buckled his seatbelt, his expression softening. It's not hard when you give me something to work with. You're not as cold as you think, Elliot. Elliot gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening. Don't get ideas. This is a job. Nothing more. Jasper's laugh was low, almost sad. Sure thing, boss. Whatever you say. Back at the penthouse, Elliot poured himself a whiskey, trying to shake the warmth of Jasper's hand from his memory. Jasper was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone, looking too comfortable in a space that felt increasingly foreign to Elliot. So, what's the deal with you? Jasper asked, breaking the silence. Why the charade? You're rich, successful, good-looking. Why not just tell your family the truth? Elliot's jaw clenched. You don't know my family, or my world. Being out isn't an option. Jasper sat up, his eyes searching Elliot's face. Not an option, or just not worth the fight. The question hit like a punch. Elliot turned away, staring out at the city skyline. You don't get it. My parents, they'd cut me off. My career, my life's all tied to their approval. Jasper stood, crossing the room to stand beside him. Sounds like a cage, man. A shiny one, but still a cage. Elliot's throat tightened. He wanted to snap back, to tell Jasper to mind his own business. But something in Jasper's voice, gentle, unafraid, stopped him. For the first time in years, Elliot felt seen, and it terrified him. Get some sleep, he said finally, his voice rough. Tomorrow's the gala. We can't screw this up. Jasper nodded, but as he turned to leave, he paused. You know, Elliot, you're not as good at hiding as you think. The door closed behind him, and Elliot stood alone, the city lights blurring through the glass. He didn't know it yet, but Jasper Cole was about to unravel everything he'd spent his life building. The gala was a glittering spectacle, held in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in white linen, where New York's elite sipped champagne and traded polite barbs. Elliot navigated the room with practiced ease, his arm around Jasper's waist, the picture of a devoted couple. But beneath the polished surface, his heart pounded like a war drum. Jasper, dressed in a tailored black tuxedo that Elliot had insisted on buying, looked every bit the part. His easy charm drew smiles from even the stuffiest guests, and his laugh, bright and unforced, echoed through the room. Elliot hated how much he noticed it, how much he noticed him. Relax, Jasper whispered, leaning in as they posed for a photographer. You're gripping me like I'm about to bolt. Elliot loosened his hold, his face a mask of calm. "Just don't overdo it," he muttered. "We're supposed to be in love, not a rom-com." Jasper's lips twitched. "Noted. But you might want to smile like you mean it, fiancé." The word sent a jolt through Elliot. He forced a grin, his eyes flicking to his parents across the room. Richard was deep in conversation with a senator, while Evelyn watched them, her expression unreadable. Elliot knew that look. She was dissecting every move, every glance, searching for cracks in their story. As the night wore on, Jasper played his role to perfection. He told stories of their courtship with such vivid detail: late-night walks through Central Park, quiet mornings over coffee that even Elliot started to believe them. When Jasper's hand brushed his, it felt less like acting and more like something dangerous, something real. Then came the dance. The band struck up a slow, jazzy tune, and couples drifted to the floor. Jasper turned to Elliot, his eyes glinting with challenge. "Shall we?" Elliot hesitated. "It's not necessary." "Oh, come on," Jasper said, already pulling him toward the dance floor. "What's a gala without a dance? Besides, your mom's watching." Reluctantly, Elliot let himself be led. Jasper's hand settled on his lower back, warm and steady, guiding him with a confidence that made Elliot's pulse race. They moved together, their steps surprisingly in sync. And for a moment, the room faded away. It was just them, the music, and the heat of Jasper's breath against his ear. "You're not bad at this," Jasper murmured, his voice low. "For a guy who probably hasn't danced since prom." Elliot's lips quirked despite himself. "I'm full of surprises." Jasper's eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, Elliot thought he saw something real in them, something that mirrored the ache in his own chest. But before he could process it, a voice cut through the moment. "Elliot, darling." Evelyn's tone was syrupy, but her eyes were sharp as she approached. "You two make such a lovely pair. Jasper, tell me, how do you put up with my son's intensity?" Jasper laughed, his arm still around Elliot. "It's not so bad, Mrs. Harper. He's got a good heart, even if he hides it under all that lawyer swagger." Evelyn's smile tightened. "A good heart. How charming." She turned to Elliot. "Your father wants a word. Alone." Elliot's stomach dropped. He excused himself, leaving Jasper with a group of curious guests. As he followed Evelyn through the crowd, he felt Jasper's gaze on his back, steady and grounding. Richard was waiting in a quiet corner, a glass of scotch in hand. "You've outdone yourself, Elliot," he said, his voice gruff. "Jasper's a fine choice. Presentable, articulate. But I hope you're not getting distracted." Distracted? Elliot kept his tone neutral, but his heart was racing. Richard's eyes narrowed. "This firm, this family, it's your legacy. Don't let personal matters jeopardize that." The words landed like a slap. Elliot nodded, his jaw tight, and rejoined the gala. But Richard's warning lingered, a reminder of the stakes. He couldn't afford to let Jasper, his own feelings, derail his life. Later, as the gala wound down, Elliot and Jasper slipped out to the hotel's terrace, the city sprawling below them. The air was cool, and Jasper's presence felt like a tether in the chaos of Elliot's thoughts. "You okay?" Jasper asked, leaning against the railing. "You've been quiet since your dad pulled you aside." Elliot stared at the skyline, his hands in his pockets. "It's nothing. Just family stuff." Jasper didn't push, but his silence was louder than words. "Finally," he said, "you don't have to tell me, But I'm here. For what it's worth. Elliot turned, meeting Jasper's gaze. The sincerity in his eyes was disarming. And for a moment, Elliot wanted to tell him everything, the fear, the lies, the longing he'd buried for years. But he couldn't. Not yet. Thanks, he said instead, his voice rough. Let's just get through tomorrow. Jasper nodded, but as they headed back inside, he brushed Elliot's hand, a fleeting touch that lingered long after they parted. Elliot lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his guest room, Jasper's words echoing in his mind. You're not as good at hiding as you think. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, casting long shadows across the marble floor. Elliot stood in the kitchen, nursing a black coffee, his mind replaying the gala Jasper's laugh, his touch, the way he'd made the lie feel so real. He was losing control, and that scared him more than any courtroom defeat. Jasper emerged from the guest room, his hair slightly tousled, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans that hugged his frame. Morning, boss, he said, grabbing an apple from the counter. Ready for day 2 of the great fiancé charade. Elliot's grip tightened on his mug. We need to talk about boundaries. Jasper raised an eyebrow, biting into the apple with a crunch. Boundaries? You mean like not making you blush in front of your mom? I'm serious, Elliot snapped. Last night, you went too far. The dancing, the comments, it's too much. Jasper set the apple down, his expression hardening. Too much. I'm doing what you paid me for, Elliot. You wanted convincing. I'm giving you convincing. What's the problem? The problem was that Elliot couldn't stop thinking about Jasper's hand on his back, the way his voice had softened during the dance. The problem was that every moment with Jasper felt like a step toward a truth he wasn't ready to face. Just tone it down, he said finally, turning away. Jasper stepped closer, his voice low. You know, for a guy who's supposed to be a genius in the courtroom, you're pretty bad at admitting what you want. Elliot's pulse spiked. He wanted to argue, to shut Jasper down, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he grabbed his jacket. We're late for brunch. Let's go. The brunch was at a quaint cafe in the West Village, a favorite of Evelyn's. The Harpers sat around a wrought iron table, surrounded by blooming flower boxes and the hum of weekend chatter. Jasper, ever the performer, kept the conversation light, charming Evelyn with stories of his art career, while dodging Richard's probing questions about his background. But Elliot couldn't focus. His father's words from the gala echoed in his head. Don't let personal matters jeopardize that. He knew what Richard meant: stay in line. Stay closeted. Stay safe. The Harper name was a fortress, and Elliot had spent his life reinforcing its walls. Jasper, with his easy smiles and fearless honesty, was a crack in that foundation. As the meal ended, Evelyn suggested a walk through Washington Square Park. The air was crisp, the park alive with street musicians and dog walkers. Jasper fell into step beside Elliot, their shoulders brushing as they lagged behind the others. You're quiet again, Jasper said, his tone softer now. What's going on in that head of yours? Elliot kept his eyes on the path. Nothing. Just thinking about work. Jasper stopped walking, forcing Elliot to face him. Bullshit. You've been wound up since last night. If I'm screwing this up, just tell me. You're not, Elliot said quickly, then regretted it. Jasper's eyes searched his, and for a moment, Elliot felt exposed, like Jasper could see every secret he'd buried. Before he could respond, a shout broke the moment. Elliot Harper, a man in his 40s, dressed in a polo shirt and khakis, approached them, his face lit with recognition. "I thought that was you. It's Tom. From Yale Law." Elliot forced a smile, shaking Tom's hand. "Good to see you, Tom." Tom's gaze flicked to Jasper, curious. "And this is my fiancé, Jasper Cole," Elliot said, the lie slipping out effortlessly. But as he said it, Jasper's hand found his, their fingers intertwining, and the warmth of it sent a shiver through him. Tom's eyebrows shot up, but he recovered quickly. "Well, congrats. Didn't know you were engaged. You two look good together." Jasper grinned, squeezing Elliot's hand. "Thanks, man. We're pretty happy." As Tom walked away, Elliot pulled his hand free, his heart racing. "You didn't have to do that," he hissed. Jasper shrugged, unfazed. "You said fiancé. I'm just playing the part." But it wasn't just a part, and Elliot knew it. The way Jasper looked at him, the way his touch linger edit was blurring the lines between pretense and reality. And Elliot, for all his control, was starting to crave it. That evening, back at the penthouse, the tension between them was palpable. Jasper was sketching on a notepad, his movements fluid and focused, while Elliot pretended to read case files. The silence was heavy, broken only by the scratch of Jasper's pencil. Finally, Jasper set the notepad down. "You ever gonna tell me what's really going on?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. "Because I'm not an idiot, Elliot. I see the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention." Elliot's throat tightened. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" Jasper stood, crossing the room to stand in front of him. "Then why do you flinch every time I get close? Why do you look like you're fighting a war in your head?" Elliot's hands clenched into fists. "Because this isn't real, Jasper. You're here because I paid you. That's it." Jasper's eyes darkened, but he didn't back down. "Maybe it started that way, but you feel it too, don't you? This, whatever it is between us." Elliot wanted to deny it, to push Jasper away and rebuild the walls he'd spent years perfecting. But as Jasper stood there, unafraid and unguarded, something in Elliot broke. He surged forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed him. The kiss was desperate, hungry, a collision of everything Elliot had been holding back. Jasper froze for a moment, then kissed him back, his hands tangling in Elliot's hair. It was fire and chaos, and for the first time in years, Elliot felt alive. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jasper's eyes were wide with surprise. "Well," he said, a slow grin spreading across his face. "That wasn't in the script." Elliot's heart pounded, panic creeping in. "This doesn't change anything," he said, his voice shaky. "It can't." Jasper's grin faded, replaced by something softer, sadder. "Keep telling yourself that, Elliot. But we both know better." The kiss lingered like a ghost, haunting Elliot as he stood in his office the next day, staring at a case file he couldn't focus on. Jasper's lips, his hands, the way he'd looked at Elliot with equal parts defiance and desire was all too much. He crossed a line, and now the carefully constructed walls of his life were crumbling. His phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. "Lunch. My treat. No script. Just us." Elliot's thumb hovered over the screen, torn between deleting the message and typing a reply. He settled on a curt busy. Maybe later. But as he sent it, regret twisted in his chest. He was pushing Jasper away, but every part of him wanted to pull him closer. The weekend with his parents wasn't over. Tonight was a private family dinner at their hotel suite. The final test of their charade. Elliot knew Jasper would show up, play the part, and leave him questioning everything all over again. He hated how much he wanted that. The hotel suite was a study in opulence. All gold accents and plush carpets. Richard and Evelyn sat at opposite ends of a long mahogany table, their faces a mask of polite scrutiny. Jasper, dressed in a crisp button-down, was his usual charming self, deflecting their questions with ease. But Elliot could feel the weight of his gaze, the unspoken question from last night hanging between them. "Jasper, you're quite the storyteller," Richard said, swirling his wine. "But I'm curious. What's your family like? Any traditions like ours?" Elliot tensed. They hadn't prepped for this. Jasper's background was a blank slate in their fake narrative, and Richard's tone suggested he knew it. Jasper didn't miss a beat. "My family's small. Just me, my mom, and my little sister back in Chicago. We don't have fancy galas, but we've got our own traditions like Sunday soul food dinners and arguing over who gets the last piece of cornbread." Evelyn laughed, a rare genuine sound. "That sounds lovely. And your mother, what does she think of Elliot?" "She hasn't met him yet," Jasper said smoothly, his hand brushing Elliot's under the table. "But she's gonna love him. She's got a thing for guys with big brains and bigger hearts." Elliot's face heated, and he shot Jasper a look. Jasper just grinned, his thumb tracing circles on Elliot's palm. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a spark in a room full of dynamite. After dinner, Richard pulled Elliot aside, his expression stern. "You're playing a dangerous game, son," he said, his voice low. "This Jasper, he's not one of us. I hope you're not letting him cloud your judgment." Elliot's stomach churned. "He's my fiancé, Dad. That's all you need to know." Richard's eyes narrowed. "I hope so. Because this family don't tolerate distractions." The warning was clear, but as Elliot rejoined Jasper, he felt a flicker of defiance. For the first time, he wondered if the life he'd built was worth the cost. Later, as they left the hotel, Jasper grabbed Elliot's arm, pulling him into a quiet alcove. "Okay, what's the deal?" he demanded. "You've been acting like I'm radioactive since last night." Elliot pulled away, his voice sharp. "Last night was a mistake. It won't happen again." Jasper's eyes flashed with hurt, but he didn't back down. "A mistake. That's what you're calling it. Because it felt pretty damn real to me." Elliot's chest tightened. "You don't understand. My life's not like yours. Can't just be who I am." Jasper stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "Why not? What's stopping you, Elliot? Your parents? Your job? Or is it just you?" The question cut deeper than Elliot wanted to admit. He turned away, his hands shaking. "You're here to do a job. That's it. Don't make this more than it is." Jasper's laugh was bitter. "You know, I thought you were different. But you're just scared. And I'm not here to fix that for you." He walked away, leaving Elliot alone in the alcove. The cities hum a distant roar. For the first time, Elliot felt the weight of his own cowardice, and it was heavier than he could bear. The next day, Elliot buried himself in work, hoping to drown out Jasper's voice in his head. But when Jasper showed up at his office, unannounced, with a coffee and a determined look, Elliot's resolve wavered. "We need to talk," Jasper said, closing the door behind him. "No script, no bullshit. Just you and me." Elliot leaned back in his chair, exhausted. What do you want, Jasper? I want to know why you kissed me, Jasper said, his voice steady. And don't give me that mistake crap. I felt it. Elliot. You did too. Elliot's throat closed. He wanted to lie, to push Jasper away again. But the truth was clawing its way out. Because I'm tired, he said finally, his voice breaking. Tired of pretending. Tired of hiding. But I don't know how to stop. Jasper's expression softened. He crossed the room, kneeling in front of Elliot's chair. You don't have to do it alone, he said. I'm here. Not because you paid me, but because I see you. The real you. Elliot's eyes burned. He wanted to believe Jasper, to let himself fall into the possibility of something real. But fear was a powerful anchor, and it held him fast. Elliot's office felt smaller with Jasper kneeling in front of him, his dark eyes steady and unguarded. The words "I see you" echoed in Elliot's mind, unraveling years of carefully built defenses. For the first time, he wondered if he could let someone in without losing everything. I can't do this, Elliot said, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't know what's at stake. Jasper stood, his expression a mix of frustration and compassion. Then tell me. Stop hiding behind your suits and your penthouse and just talk to me. Elliot's hands trembled as he stood, pacing to the window. The city stretched out below, a glittering cage he'd built for himself. My family, they're not just traditional. They're ruthless. If I come out, they'll cut me off financially, socially, everything. The firm, my career, it's all tied to them. Jasper crossed his arms, leaning against the desk. So you're just gonna live a lie forever? For what? Money? Power? It's not that simple, Elliot snapped, turning to face him. You grew up with a mom who loved you, a sister who looks up to you. I grew up with expectations. Every move I make, every choice it's all a calculation. Jasper's gaze softened, but he didn't back down. And where does that leave you, Elliot? Alone in your fancy penthouse, pretending to be someone you're not. That's not a life. That's a sentence. The truth stung, sharp and unrelenting. Elliot wanted to argue, to retreat behind his usual defenses. But Jasper's presence made that impossible. He was tired of the lies, the fear, the constant weight of his family's expectations. Before he could respond, his phone rang. It was Evelyn. Elliot, we're extending our stay, she said, her voice crisp. Your father and I want you and Jasper to join us for a weekend at the Hamptons estate. It's non-negotiable. Elliot's stomach sank. When? This weekend, she replied. We'll see you Friday. The line went dead. Jasper raised an eyebrow. Bad news. My parents want us in the Hamptons, Elliot said, rubbing his temples. Another weekend of this performance. Jasper grinned, but there was an edge to it. Guess I'm getting overtime. Elliot didn't laugh. The thought of another weekend with Jasper, pretending to be in love while fighting the real feelings growing inside him, was unbearable. You don't have to come, he said. I can make an excuse. Jasper's grin faded. You trying to get rid of me? No, Elliot said quickly, then softer. I don't know how to do this. Jasper stepped closer, his voice low. Then let's figure it out. Together. The drive to the Hamptons was quiet, the hum of the Audi's engine filling the space between them. Jasper stared out the window, sketching idly in a notebook, while Elliot gripped the wheel, his mind a storm of doubt and desire. The Hamptons estate was a sprawling mansion. All white columns and manicured lawns. A monument to the Harper family's wealth and control. When they arrived, Evelyn greeted them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Jasper, you're looking well," she said, her tone polite but probing. "I hope you're ready for a relaxing weekend." "Born ready," Jasper replied, his charm effortless. But Elliot caught the flicker of wariness in his eyes, a mirror of his own unease. The first day passed in a blur of polite conversation and forced smiles. Jasper played his role perfectly, but every touch, every glance, felt like a spark threatening to ignite something Elliot couldn't control. By evening, they were alone on the estate's private beach, the waves crashing softly against the shore. "You're good at this," Elliot said, breaking the silence. "The whole fake fiancé thing." Jasper kicked at the sand, his hands in his pockets. "It's not all fake, you know." Elliot's heart stopped. He turned to Jasper, the moonlight casting shadows across his face. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jasper met his gaze, unflinching. "It means I'm not just here for the money anymore. I like you, Elliot. The real you, not the guy you pretend to be for your family." The words hit like a tidal wave. Elliot wanted to run, to hide, but Jasper's honesty pinned him in place. "You don't know what you're saying," he managed, his voice hoarse. "I know exactly what I'm saying," Jasper replied, stepping closer. "And I think you feel it too. Question is, are you gonna keep running from it?" Before Elliot could answer, Jasper kissed him. It was softer than the first time, but no less intense. A quiet promise wrapped in salt air and moonlight. Elliot's hands found Jasper's waist, pulling him closer, and for a moment, the world was just them. When they pulled apart, Elliot's voice was shaky. "This can't happen. Not here. Not now." Jasper's eyes searched his, a mix of hope and frustration. "Then when? Elliot, when are you gonna stop hiding?" Elliot didn't have an answer. As they walked back to the house, the weight of Jasper's question settled over him, heavy and unrelenting. The Hamptons estate felt like a gilded cage, its opulent rooms and manicured grounds a stark reminder of the life Elliot was expected to lead. He lay awake that night, the memory of Jasper's kiss burning through him. Every moment with Jasper was a step closer to a truth he wasn't ready to face. But the pull was undeniable. Morning brought a new challenge, a family brunch on the estate's terrace, where Richard and Evelyn's friend-sold money types with sharp eyes and sharper tongues joined them. Jasper, as always, was a natural, weaving stories that made the group laugh and nod approvingly. But Elliot could feel the tension in his own shoulders, the constant fear that someone would see through their act. "You two are quite the pair," said Margaret, a friend of Evelyn's, her eyes glinting with curiosity. "How did you know Jasper was the one, Elliot?" The question caught him off guard. He glanced at Jasper, who was watching him with a faint smile, waiting for his answer. He challenges me," Elliot said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "He makes me question things I thought I knew." Jasper's smile widened, and for a moment, the table faded away. But Evelyn's voice cut through. "How sweet," she said, her tone laced with skepticism. "Jasper, you must feel lucky to have caught our Elliot's eye." "Oh, I'm the lucky one," Jasper replied, his hand finding Elliot's under the table. "But I think we both got something special out of this." Elliot's heart raced. Jasper's words were too real, too close to the truth. He excused himself, claiming a work call, and slipped inside, needing air, needing space. In the estate's library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the faint scent of cigar smoke. Elliot tried to steady himself, but Jasper followed, closing the door behind him. "You can't keep running," he said, his voice low but firm. "Every time we get close, you bolt." Why? Elliot leaned against a bookshelf, his hands clenched. "Because this isn't a game, Jasper. If I come out, I lose everything, me family, my career, my entire life." Jasper stepped closer, his eyes blazing. "And what do you have now? A life where you're lying to everyone, including yourself. That's not living, Elliot. That's surviving." The words hit like a punch. Elliot wanted to argue, to retreat, but Jasper's presence was a magnet, pulling him in. "You don't get it," he said, his voice breaking. "I've spent my whole life building this. I can't just throw it away." Jasper's expression softened, but he didn't back down. "I'm not asking you to throw it away. I'm asking you to fight for something real. For us." The word "us" hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Before Elliot could respond, the door opened, and Richard stepped in, his face unreadable. "Am I interrupting?" he asked, his tone clipped. Elliot straightened, his heart pounding. "No, Dad. Just talking." Richard's eyes flicked to Jasper, then back to Elliot. "I need to speak with you. Alone." Jasper nodded, giving Elliot's arm a brief squeeze before leaving. The door closed, and Richard's gaze turned cold. "I've been watching you, Elliot. You're slipping. This arrangement with Jasper is getting too personal." "It's not what you think," Elliot said, but the lie felt hollow. Richard stepped closer, his voice low. "Don't play me for a fool. I've built this family's legacy, and I won't let you destroy it over some fling. End it. Now." The ultimatum was a knife to Elliot's chest. He nodded, unable to meet his father's eyes, and Richard left without another word. Alone in the library, Elliot felt the walls closing in, his carefully constructed world suffocating him. That night, the estate was quiet, the guests gone. Elliot found Jasper on the balcony, staring at the stars. "We need to talk," Elliot said, his voice tight. Jasper turned, his expression wary. "Let me guess. Your dad said something, and now you're shutting down again." Elliot's jaw clenched. "He knows, Jasper. Not everything, but enough. He wants me to end this." Jasper's eyes darkened. "And what do you want?" The question was a lifeline, but Elliot couldn't grab it. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice raw. "I don't know how to be the person you want me to be." Jasper stepped closer, his voice soft but fierce. "I don't want you to be anyone but you. The real you, Elliot. Not the guy your dad wants. Not the guy your firm needs. Just you." Elliot's throat tightened, tears burning his eyes. He wanted to kiss Jasper again, to lose himself in the warmth of his touch. But fear was a stronger force, and it held him back. "I can't," he said finally, turning away. "I'm sorry." Jasper didn't follow him this time. As Elliot walked back to his room, the weight of his choice settled over him, heavier than ever. The Hamptons weekend dragged on, each moment a test of Elliot's resolve. He avoided Jasper as much as possible, keeping their interactions brief and formal. But every glance, every accidental brush of their hands, was a reminder of what he was trying to suppress. Jasper, for his part, didn't push. He played the role of the perfect fiancé, but his eyes held a quiet hurt that cut Elliot deeper than words. Sunday morning brought a final family gathering. A farewell brunch before the Harpers returned to the city. The terrace was bathed in golden light, the air thick with the scent of roses and coffee. Jasper sat beside Elliot, his smile polished but distant, and Elliot hated how much he missed the warmth that used to be there. Evelyn, ever observant, leaned forward. "You two seem subdued today," she said, her tone probing. "Everything all right?" "Perfect," Jasper replied, his voice smooth. "Just savoring the last of this amazing weekend." Elliot forced a nod, his stomach churning. He could feel Richard's eyes on him, a silent reminder of their conversation in the library. "End it." The words echoed, command he couldn't ignore. After brunch, as the family dispersed, Jasper pulled Elliot aside, his expression serious. "We need to talk. For real this time." Elliot's heart sank. He followed Jasper to a quiet corner of the garden, where roses bloomed in riotous color. "What is it?" he asked, his voice tight. Jasper crossed his arms, his eyes searching Elliot's face. "I'm done, Elliot. I can't keep doing this pretending for your family while you pretend you don't feel what I feel." Elliot's chest tightened. "I told you. It's complicated." "No, it's not." Jasper cut in, his voice sharp. "It's simple. You're scared, and I get it. But I'm not going to keep chasing someone who won't meet me halfway." Elliot wanted to argue, to explain, but the truth was a weight he couldn't lift. "I'm sorry," he said, the words hollow. "I can't be what you want." Jasper's jaw clenched, but his eyes were soft, almost broken. "You already are, Elliot. You just don't see it." He walked away, leaving Elliot alone among the roses, the ache in his chest growing with every step Jasper took. Back in the city, Elliot threw himself into work, hoping to drown out the memory of Jasper's words. But the firm felt colder, the cases emptier. He'd won battles in courtrooms, but this loss felt personal, final. On Tuesday, Jasper texted, "I'm coming by to drop off the tux. We need to settle up." The message was professional, detached, and it stung more than Elliot expected. When Jasper arrived at the penthouse, he was all business, the tuxedo folded neatly in a garment bag. "Here," he said, handing it over. "I think we're done." Elliot took the bag, his fingers brushing Jasper's for a moment. "You did good," he said, his voice strained. "I'll wire the payment." Jasper nodded, but he didn't leave. "You know, I thought I could handle this. Just a job, right? But you got under my skin, Elliot. And I think I got under yours." Elliot's throat closed. He wanted to say something, anything, to bridge the gap between them. But fear was a wall, and he couldn't climb it. "Take care, Jasper," he said finally, turning away. Jasper's laugh was bitter. "Yeah, you too." The door closed, and the silence was deafening. Elliot stood in the empty penthouse, the city lights mocking him through the windows. He'd done what his father asked. He'd ended it. So why did it feel like he'd lost everything? Days turned into weeks, and Elliot's life resumed its polished rhythm. Courtroom victories, client meetings, late nights at the office. But Jasper's absence was a shadow, following him everywhere. He found himself checking Jasper's social media, scrolling through photos of his art, his smile, his life free and unapologetic in a way Elliot could only dream of. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Elliot found himself at a small art gallery in Brooklyn. He hadn't planned to come, but Jasper's name was on the flyer, a solo exhibit of his paintings. The gallery was crowded, filled with people who laughed and talked with an ease Elliot envied. Jasper's work was stunning, vibrant abstracts that pulsed with emotion, each canvas a story of struggle and hope. Elliot stood in front of one, a swirl of blues and reds, and felt his chest tighten. It was like seeing Jasper's soul laid bare. "You came," Jasper's voice said behind him, soft but surprised. Elliot turned, his heart racing. Jasper stood there, paint flecks on his hands, his eyes wary but warm. I wanted to see your work," Elliot said, the words clumsy. Jasper nodded, stepping closer. "What do you think?" "It's incredible," Elliot said honestly. "It's you." Jasper's smile was small, guarded. "Didn't expect to see you here, Elliot. Thought you were done with me." Elliot's throat burned. "I thought so too," he admitted. "But I was wrong." The air between them crackled, heavy with everything unsaid. For the first time, Elliot felt the courage to step toward the truth, even if it scared him to death. The gallery's hum faded as Elliot stood before Jasper, the weight of his words hanging between them. "I was wrong." It was the closest he'd come to admitting the truth, not just to Jasper, but to himself. The air was thick with possibility, but also with the fear that had held Elliot back for so long. Jasper's eyes searched his, cautious but hopeful. "Wrong about what, Elliot?" he asked, his voice low, almost a challenge. Elliot swallowed, his hands trembling. "About you. About us. I thought I could keep this controlled. But I can't stop thinking about you." Jasper's expression softened, but he didn't move closer. "You sure about this? Because I'm not here to be your experiment. I need to know you're in, not just halfway." The words were a lifeline and a warning. Elliot wanted to promise everything, to say he was ready to tear down the walls he built. But the fear was still there, whispering of his family, his career, the life he'd fought so hard to maintain. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I want to try." Jasper's lips curved into a small, tentative smile. "That's a start," he said. "Come on. Let me show you the rest of the exhibit." They walked through the gallery, Jasper explaining each painting with a passion that made Elliot's chest ache. The art was a window into Jasper's world, bold, unapologetic, alive. Elliot envied that freedom, but for the first time, he felt it might be within reach. As the night wound down, they stepped outside, the Brooklyn air cool against their skin. Jasper paused by a streetlight, his hands in his pockets. "So, what now?" he asked. "You going back to your penthouse, pretending this didn't happen?" Elliot shook his head, stepping closer. "No. I'm done pretending. At least, I'm trying to be." Jasper's eyes softened, and he reached out, brushing a thumb across Elliot's cheek. "Good. 'Cause I'm not letting you run away again." The touch was electric, and Elliot leaned into it, his heart pounding. They didn't kiss, but the promise of it hung between them, a spark waiting to ignite. The next week was a blur of stolen moments. Coffee in Brooklyn, late-night texts, a walk through Central Park where Jasper's hand found Elliot's and didn't let go. Each moment felt like a rebellion against the life Elliot had known, a step toward something real. But the shadow of his family loomed, a constant reminder of the cost. On Friday, Elliot returned to the firm to find Richard waiting in his office, his face a storm cloud. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door. Elliot's stomach dropped. "What's this about?" Richard's eyes were cold. "I had you followed, Elliot. I know about the gallery. About Jasper. This ends now, or you're out of the firm, the family, everything. The words were a punch to the gut. Elliot had known this moment was coming, but the reality was sharper than he'd imagined. You can't control me forever, he said, his voice steady despite the fear. Richard's jaw tightened. You think you can throw away everything we've built for some fling? You're a Harper. Act like it. Elliot's hands clenched. I'm your son, not your puppet. And Jasper's not a fling. He stopped, the words catching in his throat. He's everything. But he couldn't say it. Not yet. Richard shook his head, his voice low. You have 1 week to fix this, or you're done. The ultimatum hung in the air as Richard left, leaving Elliot alone with the weight of his choice. He could keep his family, his career, his carefully constructed life, or he could choose Jasper and risk it all. That night, Elliot went to Jasper's apartment, a small walk-up in Bed-Stuy filled with art supplies and warmth. Jasper opened the door, his smile fading when he saw Elliot's expression. What happened? He asked, pulling him inside. Elliot told him everything: Richard's threat, the ultimatum, the fear that had kept him chained for so long. Jasper listened, his face unreadable, until Elliot finished, his voice breaking. I don't know what to do, he admitted. I want you, but I'm terrified of losing everything. Jasper took his hands, his grip steady. You're not losing everything. You're choosing something better. A life where you're free, where you're you. And I'll be here, every step of the way. Elliot's eyes burned with tears. He pulled Jasper close, their foreheads touching, and for the first time, he felt the courage to fight not just for Jasper, but for himself. Elliot woke to the sound of Jasper's quiet breathing, the morning light filtering through the curtains of his Brooklyn apartment. They'd stayed up late, talking, laughing, and kissing until the world felt small and manageable. For the first time, Elliot didn't feel like he was hiding. But the clock was ticking. Richard's ultimatum gave him 1 week to choose, and the weight of it pressed against his chest. Jasper stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Morning, he murmured, his voice warm. You look like you're planning a jailbreak. Elliot managed a small smile. Something like that. They ate breakfast at a tiny diner nearby, sharing pancakes and coffee, their knees touching under the table. Jasper's easy laughter was a bomb, but Elliot couldn't shake the dread building inside him. He had to face his father, his firm, his future, and he had to do it soon. I'm coming with you, Jasper said as they walked back to his apartment. Whatever you decide, I'm in your corner. Elliot stopped, turning to face him. You don't have to. This is my mess. Jasper's eyes were fierce. It's our mess now. You don't get to push me away anymore. The words settled something in Elliot's chest, a quiet strength he hadn't known he needed. He nodded, squeezing Jasper's hand. Okay. Together. Back in Manhattan, Elliot prepared for the confrontation. He'd scheduled a meeting with Richard at the firm, knowing it could be the end of everything he'd built. But as he stood in his office, adjusting his tie, he felt a clarity he hadn't known before. Jasper was worth fighting for. He was worth fighting for. Richard was waiting in the boardroom, his face a mask of disapproval. I hope you've come to your senses, he said, his voice cold. Elliot took a deep breath, his heart pounding. I have. But not the way you think. I'm done hiding, Dad. I'm gay, and I'm in love with Jasper. I'm not ending it, not for you, not for the firm, not for anyone. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Richard's face darkened. his hands clenching. You're throwing away your future for this. No, Elliot said, his voice steady. I'm choosing my future. For the first time, I'm choosing me. Richard stood, his chair scraping against the floor. You're out. The firm, the family, everything. I hope he's worth it. Elliot's chest ached, but he didn't flinch. He is. As Richard stormed out, Elliot felt a strange mix of loss and liberation. He'd lost his family's approval, but he'd gained something far more precious himself. That evening, Elliot found Jasper at the gallery, setting up for another exhibit. The space was alive with color and energy, a stark contrast to the sterile world Elliot had left behind. Jasper looked up, his face lighting up when he saw him. How'd it go? He asked, wiping paint from his hands. Elliot crossed the room, pulling Jasper into a kiss that said everything he couldn't put into words. When they parted, he smiled, his eyes bright with tears. I told him, I'm out of the firm, the family, but I'm free. Jasper's grin was radiant. You're crazy. You know that. And I love you for it. The words hit Elliot like a wave, warm and overwhelming. I love you too, he said, the truth spilling out effortlessly. They stood there, wrapped in each other, the future uncertain but full of promise. For the first time, Elliot wasn't afraid. Months later, Elliot stood in a small Brooklyn apartment, surrounded by boxes and the scent of fresh paint. It wasn't a penthouse, but it was theirs. Jasper's laughter filled the space as he hung a canvas, one of his vibrant abstracts, on the wall. You sure you're ready for this? He asked, glancing over his shoulder. No more fancy suits. No more corner office. Elliot grinned, setting down a box labeled books. I've never been more ready. He'd left the firm, starting his own practice focused on pro bono cases for marginalized communities. It was hard, messy work, but it felt right, like he was finally living for himself. His parents hadn't spoken to him since the confrontation, but the silence was a price he was willing to pay. Jasper crossed the room, wrapping his arms around Elliot. You're different now, he said, his voice soft. Happier. Elliot leaned into him, his heart full. Because of you. They kissed, slow and certain, each one a promise of the life they were building together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Elliot, that was enough. The city moved on, its rhythm unchanged, but Elliot and Jasper carved out their own corner of it. They fought, they laughed, they loved, and through it all, they held onto each other. The rainbow flag that once felt like a distant symbol now hung in their window, a quiet declaration of who they were. One evening, as they walked through Central Park, Jasper stopped, pulling Elliot close. You ever think about that first weekend? He asked, his eyes glinting. When you hired me to pretend. Elliot laughed, the memory bittersweet. Every day, I thought I was in control, but you changed everything. Jasper's smile was radiant. Good, because you're stuck with me now. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, Elliot took Jasper's hand, their fingers intertwining. He'd spent his life running from the truth, but with Jasper, he'd found it, and it was worth every risk. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.